He was George Washington's most brilliant general, the man whose battlefield genius led to the victory that arguably saved the American Revolution. He was fearless, respected, and a true patriot hero. So how did this man become the most infamous traitor in American history? His name was Benedict Arnold, and his story is a dark and complex tragedy. It's a story of battlefield glory, bitter resentment, and the most notorious act of betrayal the United States has ever known. Today, we're unpacking the story of the general who won America's most important battle and then gave it all away. Before his name meant traitor, Benedict Arnold was one of the Continental Army's best commanders, period. From the moment the Revolutionary War broke out, Arnold was a force of nature. In 1775, he was a key player in the daring capture of Fort Ticonderoga, grabbing the cannons that would eventually help push the British out of Boston. He then led a brutal, starving march through the wilderness of Maine to attack Quebec, where he was badly wounded in the leg, but praised for his unbelievable courage. He even built a small fleet on Lake Champlain and fought a battle that stalled a British invasion for a whole year. George Washington saw Arnold's genius. He knew Arnold had a difficult personality, but he also knew that on the battlefield, the man was simply indispensable. Arnold's finest hour, the moment that should have made him an American legend, came in the fall of 1777. The British, led by General John Burgoyne, had launched a massive invasion from Canada. Their plan was to seize the Hudson River Valley and cut New England off from the rest of the colonies. If they succeeded, the revolution was likely over. The American forces, under the command of General Horatio Gates, were dug in at a strategic spot called Bemis Heights, just south of Saratoga, New York. Gates was a cautious, play-it-safe kind of commander. Arnold was the exact opposite. He believed in hitting the enemy hard and fast. During the first major fight on September 19th, the Battle of Freeman's Farm, Arnold ignored his commander's orders to wait and rode straight into the action. He expertly maneuvered his troops and stopped the British assault cold, inflicting heavy casualties. But the rivalry between the two generals was just as fierce as the battle. Gates, who was jealous and insecure, completely left Arnold's name out of the official report to Congress. The tension boiled over. After a huge shouting match, Gates officially relieved Arnold of his command. For weeks, Arnold was stuck in his tent, absolutely furious, as the two armies just stared at each other. Then, on October 7th, the British attacked again in what would become the decisive Battle of Bemis Heights. As the American line started to break, Arnold couldn't take it anymore. With no orders and in direct defiance of General Gates, he jumped on his horse and galloped toward the fighting. The soldiers who had served under him before cheered when they saw him. He was a whirlwind of energy, rallying panicked troops and personally leading a ferocious charge against the British defenses. He led the assault that finally shattered the enemy lines. In the last moments of his charge, the same leg that had been wounded at Quebec was shattered by a musket ball, pinning him under his horse. But the damage was done. The British line was broken. 10 days later, on October 17th, 1777, General Burgoyne surrendered his entire army of nearly 6,000 men. That victory at Saratoga was the great turning point of the American Revolution. It convinced France that the Americans could actually win, which led to a formal alliance. That alliance brought the money, supplies, and naval power that ultimately secured American independence. And while many men fought bravely, the battlefield hero who sparked that decisive victory was without a doubt Benedict Arnold. How does a man who sacrifices so much, who literally sheds his blood for a cause, just turn his back on it all? For Benedict Arnold, the road to treason wasn't a single event. It was a slow burn, fueled by 1,000 insults, a mountain of debt, and a deep, bitter resentment. The first seeds were planted by the very people he served, the Continental Congress. Despite his incredible record, Arnold was repeatedly passed over for promotion. Other, less competent officers with better political connections were promoted ahead of him. He felt the injustice of it all. The glory of Saratoga, which should have been his, was mostly claimed by his rival, Horatio Gates, whose report barely mentioned him. While recovering from the leg wound that would leave him in constant pain for the rest of his life, Washington made him the military governor of Philadelphia in 1778. This is where his life took a fatal turn. He started living an incredibly extravagant lifestyle he couldn't afford, sinking deeper into debt. It was in Philadelphia that he met and married Peggy Shippen, a beautiful young woman from a wealthy family with strong loyalist sympathies. Peggy was used to luxury, and her influence combined with Arnold's own pride pushed him further toward financial ruin. His time in Philadelphia was also a political disaster. Local authorities accused him of corruption, claiming he was using his public office to make money for himself. A court-martial eventually cleared him of the most serious charges, but he was still given a formal reprimand from his biggest supporter, George Washington. For a man with Arnold's immense pride, this was the ultimate humiliation. He felt his sacrifices were being repaid with suspicion and insults. His dedication to the revolution began to curdle into a deep-seated hatred for the politicians he saw as corrupt and ungrateful. Feeling betrayed by the country he'd fought to create, Arnold decided to betray it right back. He started to believe the American cause was a lost one. Crushed by debt and feeling like he was owed more, he made a decision that would make his name infamous forever. Sometime in 1779, he used his wife Peggy's connections to open a secret line of communication with the British High Command in New York. His contact was Major John Andre, the charming and brilliant head of British intelligence. For £20,000, a massive fortune back then, and a general's commission in the British Army, Arnold offered to hand over the single most important military post in America, West Point. West Point was a fortress that controlled the Hudson River. If the British captured it, they could cut the colonies in two and potentially end the war in one move. George Washington, trusting Arnold completely, had given him command of that vital fort in 1780. Arnold now used that trust as his ultimate bargaining chip. In September 1780, the plot came to a head. Arnold met with Major Andre in secret to hand over the plans for West Point's defenses. But then, fate stepped in. The British ship that brought Andre up the river was forced to retreat, leaving him stranded behind enemy lines. Forced to travel back to New York on foot, Andre changed into civilian clothes, a fatal error that made him a spy. He tucked the incriminating papers in Arnold's own handwriting into his boot. Near Tarrytown, he was stopped by 3 American militiamen. Thinking they were on his side, Andre told them who he was. They searched him, found the papers, and realized they had stumbled upon a massive conspiracy. When news of Andre's capture reached Benedict Arnold, who was literally waiting to have breakfast with George Washington, he knew the game was over. He calmly excused himself from the table, fled the house, and escaped on a British ship waiting in the river. He had escaped by just a few hours. Major John Andre wasn't so lucky. He was convicted of being a spy and was hanged. Benedict Arnold was now a brigadier general in the British Army. He would go on to lead British troops against his former countrymen, even leading a raid that burned down much of New London, Connecticut, just miles from where he grew up. If you find this story of heroism and betrayal as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next dive into complex historical figures. And let us know in the comments, what other historical betrayals should we cover next? After the British surrendered at Yorktown, ending the war, Arnold's life went downhill. He and Peggy moved to London, but he was never really accepted there. To many in the British military and government, he was still a traitor, a man who had betrayed his own for money. They used his treason, but they didn't respect him for it. He tried and failed at several businesses and was often met with scorn, even being burned in effigy. His final years were filled with disappointment, poor health, and the agony of his own reputation. He died in London in 1801, a lonely and despised man. In America, his name was literally chiseled off of monuments honoring the heroes of Saratoga. There is one memorial on the battlefield, but it's a strange one. It's just a boot, dedicated to the leg that was wounded in heroic service to America. It doesn't mention a name. The story of Benedict Arnold is a timeless warning about how pride, bitterness, and ambition can corrupt even the greatest of heroes. It makes you ask a tough question. Can you ever separate a person's heroic deeds from their ultimate betrayal? Was he a flawed hero who was pushed too far, or a greedy opportunist from the very start? Let us know what you think in the comments below.